Hey friends, welcome back to the Northbrook Next Gen podcast. I'm your host, Jon Mahlstedt, and today I'm excited to be joined by Northbrook's senior pastor, Pastor Mike Bellanti. Thanks for being here, Mike.
Yeah, awesome to be with you, John. Always glad to have a conversation with you. Look forward to what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and today we're talking about maintaining a strong relationship with your kids. And I thought Mike would be a great person to address this topic. I've watched Mike over the past 14 years raise both of his children, who are both grown. I guess Ryan still has a few more months before he heads off to college. But essentially, Mike has two grown children, and he has a great relationship with both of them, and I respect that. And so when I thought about this topic, which I've had parents ask from time to time, how do I maintain a great relationship? And I thought Mike would be a great one to speak into this. So Mike, let's start here. Take me back years and years ago when Hannah was first born. What was going through your mind as a new parent?
I can still see that day in my head. Matter of fact, there was a picture that was taken. This was before digital cameras, so it's a actual paper picture.
You are that old.
I am that old. And I'm walking in the door holding the car seat thing, and I can still see the picture. I can still see the jacket that I was wearing, the look on my face, because both my children came with a lot of drama. So Hannah, when she was born, about halfway through the day, she had trouble breathing. And so she was turning blue. Her lips were turning blue. We were all freaking out. But they fixed it, but she had to go home on oxygen. So not only am I carrying the car seat in, but I'm also carrying an oxygen tank strapped to my back.
Wow.
And so we get in the house that evening, and Rebecca's wiped, so she goes and lays in bed, and I lay Hannah in the cradle. And then I sit up in my bed, and the cradle's right next to my bed, and I can remember saying to myself, well, now what? I mean, do I stay up all night? Do I have to watch her? What do I do?
Yeah.
And so that was the very first thing going through my mind is I have no idea what to do now.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally get that. Felt the same way when we brought home Charity. So today we're going to explore practical ways to strengthen your relationship with your children. And at the end, we'll go over some common things to avoid. But what was your childhood like, and how did that shape your parenting?
So I'm going to probably date myself a little bit with this reference, but I do kind of feel like I had to Leave It to Beaver, if anyone's familiar with that TV show. My home life was great. My mom was a stay-at-home mom the whole time me and my brothers were growing up. I had a great relationship with both of them. My parents are wonderful parents. I certainly had they call them the dark years, but I had my moments, and so I definitely made life for them difficult at times, but they were very caring, nurturing. Growing up in the 70s and 80s, it was just a different time back then, so maybe the parental controls weren't as much as they are now. They weren't helicopter parents, but they were very nurturing. And even now, I mean, my dad's my hero. I'm a mama's boy to the core. I call my parents 6 to 7 days a week. Actually, I FaceTime them almost every day. And so the way that they raised me and the way they continue to invest in my life actually affects how I parent my children, particularly now that they're both legally adults anyway. And so, like my mom, the grandkids all call my mom Sissy. That's the nickname they gave her. There's a long story behind it. We're not going to get into it, but they all call her Sissy. And so whenever I am trying to make a decision, not every time, but occasionally when I'm trying to make a decision with my adult kids, I'm like, what should I do? I always think, what would Sissy do right now? So my mom and my dad both influence me, and they have a huge part. I mean, I feel lucky. Not everyone has the story I have, that I had two parents that they're still together. They've been married over 50 years. And so they play a huge role in how I live my life and parent my own kids.
Yeah, that's good. So I've heard you say when you're talking about parenting, all is grace, give yourself some.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what does that look like for parents who feel like they're getting it wrong, or what does that mean to you?
Yeah. Well, the phrase "all is grace" actually is the title of a book I read years ago. It was the autobiography of Brennan Manning. And that phrase, "all is grace," is always, I mean, I read the book, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. But that phrase has defined my life. When I saw it, something just gripped me. I knew there was something about that phrase. And so I try to look at all of life through the lens of grace. And when we look at parenting, if a parent says, "I feel like I'm getting some things wrong," you're right. You probably are. I mean, when you become a parent, there are lots of books, but I didn't find any parenting books very helpful. You just got to kind of figure it out. And so there are many moments in my time as a parent when my kids were at home that I made the wrong decision. I wish I would have done something different. I wish I could have taken back what I said. And then I pause and I'll say, "All is grace, Mike. You're a human being. You're going to make mistakes, and it's okay." So for those who feel like they're getting it wrong, there may be moments you are. So what? Every day is a new day. All is grace. Learn from what maybe you feel like you got wrong. Adapt, and let the grace of God just wash over your parenting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you're a parent, you're getting some things wrong, welcome to the club, right? None of us are perfect. But Scripture does have a lot to say to guide us. And so are there any Scripture verses that stand out to you or have been helpful to you in your parenting journey?
Yeah, there's one in particular, Psalm 103. The writer of that psalm says, "As a father shows compassion to his children, so the Lord shows compassion to those who fear him." I love that passage. And the word, I think, fear is a bit, the translation is, it's not meant like, I don't want my kids to be terrified. I mean, fear doesn't mean be terrified. It means to have a reverent respect of, and I hope that children have a reverent respect of their parents. I certainly have that for my mom and dad. But maybe more important, as a father shows compassion to his children. I know it could be very easy for me as a dad to be more like a drill sergeant, feeling like I need to pound these virtues and characteristics into my children. Mm-hmm. And maybe there are moments I did that. I don't remember. Ask my kids, they'll probably tell you. But I hope and believe that I showed compassion to my children, because in the same way, that's the model that God gives for our relationship with us. He is our Father, and He chooses to show compassion with us when we screw up, because we always do, when we kind of drift, because we always do. And our kids are the same way. Our kids are going to screw up. Our kids are going to drift. Our kids are going to do what they do. But I want to be that dad that shows compassion to my children. Compassion doesn't mean I let them get away with everything. Right. That's a misnomer, because every behavior has a consequence. And I have no problem and had no problem giving consequences to my children. But I want it to come from a place of compassion, not a place of anger.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So let's back up for a second. So this is a parenting podcast. We're talking about parenting. And I know one of the things that is important to you, which is the title of this podcast, is maintaining a good relationship, keeping a good relationship with your kids. So why is that so important? Of all the parenting advice, why are we spending time talking about maintaining a good relationship with your kids?
Well, I mean, first, at its core, they're my family. Mm-hmm. And I have a high value of family. My blood literally is in their veins. I am responsible, obviously with the help of the Lord, to create them. I intentionally brought them into the world. And I brought them into the world because I desired that nurturing relationship with someone that was quite literally part of my wife and I's own body. Mm-hmm. So that's the beginning of it. But then, of course, besides my wife, I spend the most time with my kids. And that's how every parent is. You are with your children all of the time. And so that's important. But as my kids get older, I just like being around them. Mm-hmm. My daughter's awesome. My son is hilarious. And as I get older, I want that relationship to be a part of my everyday life and rhythm. Mm-hmm. I know, and again, this is a painful statement I'm going to make, and I don't mean it to be that way, but I know lots of people that either chose to not have children or couldn't have children that are now my age, 50, 60, 70, and they don't have that legacy. They don't have that kind of relationship, because there's something very intimate about a relationship with both your wife and with your kids that is not the same with just friends. And then, of course, grandkids are going to start coming, hopefully sooner than later. And that's part of my legacy. And I want that relationship as well. Every person that I know that has grandkids and have a healthy relationship with their children just tell me that being a grandparent is so much different. And some people have said it's even better because you get to love on these kids and spoil them, and then you get to send them home and then go cry to their parents, which sounds awesome to me. And so this is the most important relationship outside my wife and God is with my children. And so I want that to be strong. And currently, it seems both my kids still like me, and I kind of want to keep it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Okay, so let's get into some actual concrete behaviors that strengthen relationships. What are some of those things that have worked for you, or that you would encourage parents to practically do to keep relationships strong?
Yeah, and I've got a whole list of things, because a while back, for some of you may remember, we did a whole seminar at one of our family conferences. And so these aren't in any particular order, but I want to begin with consistent verbal and action-based support. Beginning with verbal, words matter. Words shape the world. Words can be life-giving, but also can invite death in a lot of ways. And so the words that I choose to use with my children, and backing those words up with action. I mean, I've told my children, I support you no matter what. Mm-hmm. I regularly told my kids and regularly tell my kids, I love you. I tell every day, whenever Ryan leaves or whenever I hang up the phone with Hannah, we say that. And then I want to show my support through my actions, even when my children have made mistakes. Every child on the planet, including myself, will do something dumb. Their brains aren't fully formed. We've talked a lot about that. When I was a kid, I did some pretty dumb stuff. My kids have done stupid things over the years. And I want to support them even in their poor decisions, even if that means there's going to be a consequence attached to it, because I believe in consequences for actions, but I still will support them. Matter of fact, when I did the seminar, I actually asked my daughter, Hannah, to help me answer the questions. And so one of the things that she said to me that she wrote, she said, when I was struggling in school, my parents went out of their way to help me finish the year. This was in college. During college, Hannah was struggling with some health issues towards the end of college. She was in the ER a few times. And she wrote this. She wrote, even living with me temporarily to get through exams. And what that meant is she was struggling with a pretty significant health issue that had landed her in the hospital multiple times. And my wife was like, is she going to finish college? I mean, it was pretty scary for a minute. And I said, you know what? I'm dropping everything, and I'm driving up to Green Bay. And she had an apartment because she was an RA. And I'm like, I'm just going to live with her. If I have to take a month off from work and just go help her get through this, I'm going to do it. And so that's what I mean when I say action-based support.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It reminds me of this study, and I don't know the exact numbers, but, as parents, we do a lot of critiquing and helpful criticizing. And some study says for like every one critique, you need to balance that with I feel like I'm not sure of the numbers. So I want to say 8 positive things.
Yep, that sounds about right.
And so just a reminder of, we need to criticize or critique our kids, but how much more important is the positive affirmations and pointing out what they're doing right, helping them, being there for them.
Yep.
That's good.
Yeah. Second, I would say create a welcoming home. And what I mean by that is every home has a culture to it. The word that we might use to describe it is the word centality. So what personality is to an individual, we all have personalities. Centality is how it feels to be a part of an organization or an institution. Basically, I can summarize it this way. What does it feel like to be here right now? So let's use Northbrook as an example. When you come to Northbrook, there is a feeling attached to it. That's centality. There's a culture. There's an emotion. And so in my home, I want to have a mentality or a culture that makes my kids want to be there.
Yep.
And over the years, what I found, particularly with my son's a bit of an extrovert. He has a lot of friends, and his friends love coming to our house. They're over all the time. They take over my basement. Some of my son's friends will sit for an hour and just talk with my wife, which I love. But the reason that's important to me is I've even said to Ryan in particular, you guys hang out here a lot. And he even said, my friends love to come here because you're just not like other parents. I think, what does that mean? And he said, well, you don't hover, you're not super strict, but I know we have boundaries. I think children should feel comfortable at home.
Yeah.
So that's important. Third, I think we should offer positive reactions to mistakes. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is I'm not saying let your kids get away with everything, but there are moments in which my kids have done something and it was a small accident. It was something small and it wasn't even their fault. It was an accident. I'd rather laugh at it than get mad. I've always reinforced that mistakes are okay. Perfection isn't expected. Mm-hmm. There are rules, and when the rule's broken, there's going to be a consequence. But this is the most important. Being emotionally stable when you offer correction.
Yeah.
Most of the time when my children did something that was outside of our boundaries, I didn't react with anger or overreact. There were a few moments, I have a couple in my head right now where I know I lost it. I'm a human being too. But most of the time, and again, my daughter helped me write some of this, most of the time I was and still am emotionally stable even when having to offer correction. There are a couple big incidents in my kid's life when I remember some bigger things happened and I just said, you know what? This was a bad decision. We're going to have a consequence and we're going to move on with life. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want. And that's important. I know there are parents that you get mad, you fly off the handle. I get it. Our children are our sources of greatest joy and greatest pain. And no one seems to know how to push our buttons like our children do. And so I would encourage you to learn the fine art of being emotionally stable and settled when offering correction to your children.
Yeah, that's good.
Number 4, offer support during crisis. And we have to redefine what crisis is because a crisis for a 13-year-old is very different to me as a 51-year-old.
Sure.
So for one of our kids, a bad breakup or a bad grade might not feel like a crisis to a parent, but to some children, that's a crisis. And so I take those crises, even the seemingly small ones, seriously. Mm-hmm. And so even if they seem small to you, support them and hear them out. And don't just say it's not a big deal because that never works.
Yeah.
5th, I would say model vulnerability. Be open about your feelings to your kids. Mm-hmm. It encourages children to feel their emotions. And so one of the examples that Hannah gave me was, she said, when I asked my parents, me and Rebecca, if they're stressed and why they're stressed, they shared it honestly. We would share appropriately and honestly what we were stressed about. Mm-hmm. And she said that it reminded her that she could do the same thing. So model vulnerability with your kids. You don't got to hide it. You're human too. So
yeah, that's good.
Yeah. 6, be an active listener. And what I mean by active listening, I mean, don't formulate your response while you're listening. Because it's easy for kids to start going and you're formulating your response to whatever it is they're saying. No, stop, be fully present, actively listen to what it is that they're saying. So does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Are these making sense?
It's hard to do.
It's super hard to do.
But it's important, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
Because listening is more than hearing. It's understanding, but it's also validating. Okay, I know you feel this way, and I feel it with you. How do we navigate this emotion that you're feeling?
Yeah.
Number 7, intentional check-ins and just showing up. Sometimes we think our kids don't want us to check in with them, whether it be a call, a text, spending time intentionally. But honestly, I had a wake-up call a while back because Ryan, who's now 18, he just said out of the blue one time, I kind of wish you'd check in with me a little more when I'm out. And I just was shocked because I would have never said that to my parents.
No.
And so I took that to heart. And so now I do that. I attended almost every single concert, cross-country meet, football game, soccer game, basketball game, every sport that Ryan tried. I even went to those elementary school Christian concerts that seemed to drag on forever. I went to every single one, and I supported my children in everything that they did. And of course, I celebrate and love unconditionally. For me, there is nothing that my children can do that will make me stop loving them, which reminds me of the heart of God, which is really important to me. My children could do the most atrocious of things, and I will still love them. And then finally, find some things that are a shared interest. Build connection through activities or hobbies. So 2 examples I'll give. When Hannah was about 3, I think she was 3 or 4, we lived in Colorado, and Rebecca was pregnant with Ryan. And everyone that listens to this and knows me knows how I feel about coffee. I love coffee. It is 50% of the reason I get up in the morning.
Same.
And yeah, maybe even more, but I'm trying to at least be, not be talk like an addict. But when Rebecca was pregnant with Ryan, the smell of brewing coffee nauseated her, made her sick. And so that's a big problem in our house.
That's a very big problem.
I even tried brewing coffee outside. I brought the coffee pot out in our backyard, and she still screamed out the door, "Are you brewing coffee right now?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, this is horrible."
That's the problem.
Well, at the time where we lived in Colorado, there was a Starbucks within walking distance of our house. And so every morning that I was home and not at work, I would put Hannah in the stroller, and we would walk over to the Starbucks, which was inside of a grocery store. And I would get coffee. I'd buy her a donut and chocolate milk. And when she could start, and this went on for years, even after Ryan was born, and she started calling it Daddy Donut Day.
Nice.
And it's a fond memory.
Yeah.
We also, Hannah loves to sing, and so there were some shared songs that we'd have that we would be driving in the car, and it would come on, and we'd sing it loud, and I can't sing a lick, but it was something that built a meaningful connection. So those are my 9. I'm sure there's plenty more, but those are the 9 that come to mind when I think about that.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. And I know, like, from where we started this conversation with Grace, like, parents aren't going to get all 9 of those perfect, but just trying to be intentional and not beat yourself up when you fall short, but just to see the opportunities, whether your kid is 3 or whether your kid's 18, to build relationship with those 9, I think is so important. And again, it's an opportunity. It's not not a guilt trip. It's an opportunity.
Yeah.
I love that. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we talked about what you can do. What have you noticed that parents do that perhaps does the opposite? Instead of building a relationship, creates a divide? What are some thoughts you have on that?
I think the number one thing is a tense household.
Sure.
Household tension. Kids can feel it. I am convinced the greatest gift that you can give your children as a parent is a good marriage.
Yeah.
Now, of course, marriage is difficult. Marriage is work. I've talked very openly and freely about a pretty big wall my wife and I hit years ago. Ryan's 18, so this would have been 19 years ago. We hit a pretty big wall, and there was tension in our home. But we worked on it. Now, my wife and I would both agree that our marriage is the best it's ever been. But kids can feel the tension, and a tense household does something to children. Yeah. It does something emotionally. It does something psychologically. They don't feel like they can relax and let their guard down. And I don't say this to shame anybody, because I get it. There are problems. But if you are in the middle of a tense, if your household is tense, I think the number one thing you can do as a parent right now is to find ways to fix that.
Yeah, that's good.
I think second would be the overemphasis on performance.
Okay, yeah.
We live in a day in which I think the pressure on kids to perform is astronomical and unfair and not even realistic.
Yep.
Whether it be grades or sports or activities, we can create a lot of shame if we put an overemphasis on those things. I know kids right now that used to love baseball, but now hate baseball because their dad was so, over the top, would get on his kid. And here's a game that this kid used to love, and now he hates it because his dad just rode him about his performance in baseball. Mm-hmm. Same with grades. I mean, of course, I don't want my kids to fail, and I push my children to do well in school, but I don't need them to get straight A's. I don't know that anyone getting straight A's ever changed the world. Yep. Obviously, I don't want them to slack off and not do their homework, but I was always graceful with grades. If a grade was dropping, I'm like, okay, we need to do some things about this. But if one of my children tried really hard and they got a B+ instead of an A on a test, I'm like, did you do your best? Yep. Well, then don't worry about it. Give it your best on the next one. Same with sports. I wanted my kids to play sports. Ryan played football for a long time, and his sophomore year, he just decided he was way more interested in golf. And he said, Dad, I just don't really want to play football anymore. I want to give all my attention to golf. And I'm like, great, you did it. And that doesn't mean I just let him get away with anything, because when I think about Hannah, when she was in middle school, decided to run cross country. And so she goes to cross country practice the first day, and I remember picking her up, and she was as white as a ghost. And she said, Dad, it was so hard. I don't want to do it again. I don't want to do it anymore. And I said, Hannah, it's the first day of practice. Let's just give it a week and see what happens. You're not going to quit today. You told your coach you're going to do it, so you're not quitting today. But let's just give it a week. And she said, okay. And she gave it a week, and then it was a month, and then it was a year, then it was 8th grade, then it was 9th grade. And she ran cross country all the way through her senior year. And so I didn't overemphasize it, but I also was like, let's at least give this a shot. So I think we really need, you coach, you ref, you have kids in sports. You've seen those parents in the crowd that are screaming at their kids over the coach. Don't do that. It's embarrassing, and it doesn't help anybody.
At that point, it's more about the parent than it is about the kid. It's more about their identity, their ego, than it is about their kid actually having fun.
Yeah, and honestly, you have no idea what you're doing to your kid when you do that. I have seen the collateral damage with kids who have told me things that happen when their parents do that.
Yep.
Number 3, I think there's just a lack of quality time. I think you should take your kids on dates, both of them, both boys and girls. And I don't just think the mom should take the son and the dad should take the daughter. I think the dad should take daughters and sons on dates. I think the mom should take daughters and sons on dates. And I wasn't always perfect at this, but I did do it. We created time to find things that interest my kids and just take them on what they call daddy dates. And then I think finally, there are just some poor communication habits that we get into. I had a conversation years and years ago with a 20-something, and he basically was struggling with some things. And he said to me, and I quote, he said, I wish my parents would just parent me. And wow, that was something. But that means talking with your child and not just at them. And when I talk about communication, it's not just the words that you use, but it's the behaviors that you display. Yeah. They're going to mimic you. They're going to mimic your behaviors. So communicate well, both with words and with actions, because poor communication habits are detrimental to the relationship with kids.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, all that makes sense. And again, not to shame or guilt parents, but I think that's gives us some real clear roadmap to having a good relationship with our kids.
Yeah.
So before we end, what are some practical takeaways or just some last thoughts to kind of sum up all that we covered today?
Yeah. Be present. Listen to your kids. Let them talk. Let them share their emotions. Create an environment where that allows to happen. Allow that to happen. Now, again, if this isn't the current norm, you're not going to be able to march home and say, sit down, son, we're going to just start talking now. That's going to feel awkward and weird. But slowly create an environment in your home where your children feel safe, where your children feel like they're heard. But also as a parent, you need to feel heard as well. And so that's where vulnerability comes in. Explaining to children why, when they don't listen to you, what it does to you inside. I think that's pretty important. So I think the call to action here is be present, listen, and create a welcoming, nurturing environment in your home.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you being here. And parents, I just encourage you to, again, like Mike said, don't try to do everything, but if you feel like there's room to grow in this area, and I feel like every parent would probably say there's room to grow, pick one small practical thing you can implement this week from what Mike said. And again, don't feel overwhelmed like you got to do everything. Just pick one small step and take it this week. One of our values is really the value we've been talking about this whole podcast, and that's fight for the heart. And it's the idea that, there's a ton of, like Mike said, there's a ton of parenting books and podcasts and best practices. But if you can fight for the heart of your children, in other words, maintaining a relationship with them, and just maintaining a strong communication with them, if they want to hang out with you when they're grown, you're doing something right. And so our heart is that all of our parents here at Northbrook and those listening would be able to maintain that strong relationship with their kids through small, intentional acts. So thanks for watching today, and look for another Next Gen podcast next month. As always, we're praying for you, parents, and we're with you. Reach out to us if there's any way that we can help you in your parenting.